I still remember the morning he left, not just the sound of the door closing, but the silence that followed. The kind that hums in your chest, like something inside you just cracked. I was standing there holding Lily in one arm and Noah in the other, the smell of warm milk and baby lotion still clinging to my robe. And then James, my husband, the man who once swore I was his forever, looked at me like I was a stranger, like I didn't exist. He said, "Emma, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, not even I love you. Just that." I remember blinking once, twice, waiting for him to laugh and say it was a joke, that the stress was too much, that he just needed air. But he didn't. He turned around, picked up the keys, and walked out. And that was it. I stood in that tiny apartment holding two lives we created together and realized the man I loved had abandoned us before the ink on our birth certificates had even dried. If you've ever had your heart shatter in silence without screams without warning, then you understand what I felt in that moment. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was erasure. It was watching everything you built, every hope, every whispered plan for the future turn to dust in a blink. I used to believe that love could conquer anything, that if two people wanted something badly enough, they could outlast anything class family pressure expectations. But love doesn't always win. Not when it's standing in the shadow of money legacy and a mother-in-law like Evelyn Whitaker, a woman whose heart is as cold as the diamond brooch she wore the day she first looked me in the eye and decided you're not worthy of my son. James had once promised me the world, but he gave it to her instead. So I was left with Lily and Noah, two tiny heartbeats that didn't understand yet that their father had chosen a life of power over a life of love. They didn't know what abandonment meant, but I did. I felt it in my bones. I wore it like a second skin. If you're still with me listening to this story, maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've been the one left behind, not just by a partner, but by the dreams you built with them. Maybe you know what it's like to break in silence, to have no one to scream at, no one to blame but a closed door and the echo of what could have been. If that's you, I hope you'll stay, because this story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about becoming whole again. And if this story reaches something inside you, if it makes you feel seen, I'd be honored if you leave a comment and subscribe to The Family Lies. Because sometimes sharing our scars is the only way to help someone else heal theirs. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I first met James Whitaker, the kind of day when the sunlight cuts through amber leaves, and even the noise of the city seems to hush for a moment. I had just moved to New York after graduating, with a degree in interior design, full of ambition, clutching a coffee that was too hot and a sketchbook too full. I wasn't looking for love that day, but love found me anyway. James didn't walk. He moved like he belonged to the city, elegant, effortless. He bumped into me outside a tiny cafe on 6th Street. My coffee nearly spilled, and I looked up to find these piercing blue eyes and a boyish grin that could probably talk a nun into sin. He apologized, offered to buy me another drink, and we sat down at that little table as if we'd done it 1,000 times before. He never mentioned money. Not once. There were no name drops, no suits, no pretense. Just stories, laughter. His hand brushing mine as he leaned in too close. We talked until the sun dipped low behind the skyline. At the time, I had no idea that James was heir to the Whitaker real estate empire, a dynasty that owned properties from Manhattan to Malibu. I only knew that his smile made my ribs ache and his voice felt like home. We fell fast, the kind of love that made you forget time. He showed me his world, and for a while, I thought I belonged there. Weekend getaways to his family's country estate, slow walks through Central Park, late-night diners, and inside jokes that made me feel like we were the only two people on Earth. When I told him I was pregnant, James cried. Real tears. He kissed my stomach and promised everything would be okay. He said he would protect us, that no matter what his family said, we were his future. And I believed him. Because when someone holds your hand with trembling fingers and swears they'll never let go, you want to believe it. Then came Evelyn Whitaker, James's mother, the queen of cold rooms and colder stares. The first time I met her, I was barely 2 months pregnant. She had invited us to a charity gala hosted in her family estate, a mansion so vast it felt like stepping into a different century, the kind of place where whispers live in the wallpaper. She greeted me with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. A champagne glass in hand posture, perfect voice, sharper than the ice cubes clinking in her drink. "James tells me you're expecting," she said, eyes scanning me like a resume she didn't want to read. How surprising. From that moment, I knew I wasn't welcome. The other guests at the gala were all polished and poised, draped in designer labels and secrets. They barely acknowledged me. Evelyn barely spoke to me after that she didn't have to. Her silence said enough. What followed were weeks of tension. James started taking more calls. He'd step outside the apartment whispering into the phone. When I asked, he said it was business. But I knew. He started to pull away. There were moments when I'd catch him staring at the ceiling at night as if counting regrets. And no matter how tightly I held him, he seemed to slip further from reach. He was there physically when Lily and Noah were born. He held them. He smiled. But something inside him had shifted quietly, permanently. And I knew even before the words came that he was leaving, that Evelyn had won. I wasn't just fighting for our marriage. I was fighting a legacy, and it was a battle I was about to lose. If this part of my story resonates with you, if you've ever watched someone you love turn into a stranger because of pressure, wealth, or family expectations, leave a comment. And if you want more stories that dig deep into heartbreak and healing, I invite you to subscribe. Because sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is survive the silence before the storm. It happened on a Tuesday morning. The kind of morning that should have been ordinary, a pot of coffee brewing, the twins still half asleep in their cribs, soft light spilling in through the curtains. But nothing was ordinary about that day. That was the day James Whitaker walked back into our apartment and tore my world in two. He didn't knock. He didn't even speak at first. He just stood there in the doorway, rain clinging to his coat, eyes hollow like someone who'd forgotten how to be alive. I remember holding Lily in one arm and reaching for Noah with the other. I smiled when I saw him because I believed somehow still that he had come back to start this new chapter with us. That maybe we were still a family. I was wrong. "We need to talk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I placed the twins gently in their crib, feeling my heart begin to pound. "What is it, James? Are you okay?" He didn't look at me. His jaw clenched. His eyes wandered, searching the floor like it could give him courage. And then he said it. "I can't do this anymore." Silence swallowed the room. "Can't do what?" My voice cracked. "This life, us, the babies, everything." I stepped back. My breath caught in my throat. "What are you saying?" He inhaled slowly like he was trying to keep from falling apart. "My mother was right. You and I, we come from different worlds. I tried, but it's not enough. I'm not enough for this." And in that moment, I realized he wasn't just leaving me. He was abandoning our children too. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage, to fall to my knees and beg him not to do this. But I couldn't move. My body felt like it had turned to stone. I could only whisper, "You're leaving your own children because of her, because Evelyn said so." His silence was my answer. I remember watching him turn and walk out the door. He didn't even look back. The door clicked shut like the final punctuation mark on a sentence I never got to finish. That day I died in a way. The Emma Carter who believed in unconditional love, who believed in vows, and forever she was gone. What followed were the darkest days of my life. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I barely functioned. I fed the twins because I had to. I changed their diapers with trembling hands, rocked them to sleep while tears streamed silently down my face. There were nights I held them both in my arms and cried until I was too numb to feel anything at all. The apartment felt colder than it ever had. Every creak of the floorboards reminded me he was no longer there. Every soft coo from my children reminded me that they had no idea their father had turned his back on them. People called, friends, family, even coworkers who'd heard something through the grapevine. But I didn't answer. I couldn't bear the shame in their voices or the pity. I didn't know how to explain that the man who had once sworn to protect me had left me broken with two tiny souls to raise. My body ached from childbirth, but the wounds inside were so much deeper. I felt useless, empty, like all the light had drained from my life and all that was left was surviving, one moment to the next. I began to question everything. Was I not enough? Was it my fault? Had I somehow failed him, failed us? But then one night, as the rain tapped against the window pane and Lily whimpered softly in her sleep, I looked at their faces. So small, so helpless, so undeserving of this chaos. And something inside me shifted. I couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not when they needed me more than ever. James had chosen to walk away. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. I wiped my tears with the sleeve of my sweater, stood up straight, and whispered to the sleeping room, "You still have me. You'll always have me." That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of the room holding them both in my arms, humming lullabies I barely remembered from my own childhood. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something stir beneath the grief. Strength. If you've ever been left when you needed someone most, if you've ever had to build yourself back up piece by piece while holding someone else together, I see you. The days after James left were a blur of grief, exhaustion, and numbness. Emma Carter had spent countless nights cradling Lily and Noah, whispering lullabies with a voice hoarse from crying. Her body was still healing from childbirth, but it was her soul that bore the deepest wounds. For weeks, her apartment felt like a prison walls closing in with every sunrise. The world outside went on indifferent to the fact that hers had fallen apart. But one night, as rain tapped softly against the window and both babies finally slept in tandem, a flicker of clarity pierced through the fog of despair. Emma stood in the dim kitchen, holding a cold cup of tea, and whispered to herself, "I can't keep breaking." She looked down the hall where her children slept and realized the cruel truth: no one was coming to save her. She had to do it herself. The next morning, she started searching for work. She updated her resume between diaper changes and naps. She made calls during feedings and wrote cover letters while bouncing Lily in a sling. But rejection came fast and often. Employers weren't subtle. "You have 2 infants," they would say, eyebrows raised. "How will you manage deadlines?" Her heart sank with every rejection email. Still, Emma refused to give up. When full-time work proved impossible, she pivoted to freelance gigs, interior design consultations for small businesses, sketch mock-ups for apartment renovations. She worked while her children napped while the city slept, and often while tears slipped quietly down her face. But even that wasn't enough. Late one night, as she folded her baby's tiny clothes, she realized something: most children's clothes were either overpriced or poorly made. The few affordable ones lacked any softness or charm. And that's when the idea sparked. What if she made her own? Emma wasn't a fashion designer, but she could sew. Her late mother, a seamstress, had taught her the basics. Somewhere in a forgotten drawer was a sketch pad filled with childhood designs for doll dresses. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She borrowed a dusty sewing machine from her neighbor, Mrs. Linda Brooks, who smiled gently and said, "This little thing helped me raise 5 kids. It's your turn now." Emma started with simple pieces: onesies, leggings, soft headbands. At first, just for Lily and Noah. But when she posted photos online, friends began asking where she got them. One friend placed a custom order, then another. She launched a small online shop called Little Blessings, using her last $200 for fabric and thread. The first few weeks were brutal. Photos got no likes, products sat unclicked, emails to mommy bloggers went unanswered. Once a customer canceled an order minutes before shipment. Emma cried, but she didn't quit. She taught herself product photography using a borrowed phone and natural window light. She redesigned her site. She wrote heartfelt blog posts about single motherhood and resilience. Slowly, the orders trickled in. A mother from Seattle ordered a pink set for her newborn. Another from Atlanta sent a thank you note praising the softness of the fabric. One morning, Emma woke up to find her story shared by a parenting influencer. Her inbox exploded. She screamed a sound of shock and hope. She called Hannah Mills an old friend to help pack orders. Her apartment became a tiny factory with thread spools rolling across the floor and fabric draped over furniture. Each night, Emma worked while her children slept, stitching dreams into cotton and courage into every seam. Her hands were calloused, her eyes red, but her spirit grew fiercer. She wasn't just making clothes, she was building a legacy. There were setbacks, missed shipments, wrong sizes, sleepless nights that blurred into chaotic mornings. But Emma learned. She adapted. And with each package she sent, she felt a piece of her former self coming back to life. She was no longer just the woman who had been abandoned. She was Emma Carter, founder of Little Blessings provider for her family, and a mother who refused to let pain define her. And though the world still saw her as a single mom struggling in a tiny apartment, Emma knew the truth. She was rising, quietly, powerfully, one stitch at a time. The first order came in on a rainy Tuesday morning. I still remember the way my hands trembled as I held the notification on my phone. It wasn't a huge sale, just a tiny newborn outfit ordered by a young mother in Chicago. But to me, it felt like the universe had finally whispered, "Keep going." I sat at the kitchen table, my twins napping in their bassinets beside me, and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from something softer, hope. That single order meant someone somewhere believed in something I had made, with my hands, in the middle of my grief, in the middle of my survival. I packaged that order with more care than I had given anything in years. I wrapped the onesie in brown paper, tied it with string, and slipped in a handwritten note, "From one mama to another, thank you for believing in me." That first sale opened a door I hadn't dared to knock on before. Slowly, more orders followed. One here, one there. A hat for a baby boy in Seattle. A tiny dress for a christening in Georgia. I stayed up long after Lily and Noah had fallen asleep, cutting fabric in the dim glow of my desk lamp, my sewing machine humming softly against the silence of midnight. Each stitch was an act of defiance, a quiet refusal to surrender. Weeks passed. Then, one day, something I still can't explain happened. A popular mom influencer named Brooklyn Fields stumbled across my shop. She ordered 3 outfits, and then she posted about them. Her Instagram story went viral overnight. "You guys," she said, holding up a soft cotton romper, "this is handmade by a single mom. She calls her shop Little Blessings. And I'm telling you right now, these are magic." My inbox exploded. I received more orders in 48 hours than I had in the previous 3 months. I barely slept, racing to sew, package, and ship every outfit on time. My living room looked like a miniature factory fabric stacked to the ceiling, spools of thread, rolling across the floor, packing tape stuck to every surface. I had to call Hannah Mills, an old friend from college, to help me label and box each parcel. "You weren't kidding," she said, laughing as we folded onesies at 2 a.m. sipping cold coffee. "This place is a blessing and a battlefield." She was right, it was both. Eventually, the demand became too much to manage alone. I found a small local workshop and hired 2 women to help with production. Both were single mothers, too. We shared stories while we worked, swapping laughter recipes and survival tactics between stitches. Within 6 months, Little Blessings became a name people knew. Parenting blogs wrote about our handmade clothing. Reviewers praised the comfort and care sewn into each item. I watched my brand grow from a flicker of an idea into something real, something I had built with nothing but grief, grit, and a needle. One morning, while sipping coffee on the porch as the twins played with wooden blocks at my feet, I received an email from a major mother and baby retail chain in New York. They wanted to carry my designs in stores across the country. I had to reread the message 3 times before it sank in. My hands covered my face. I cried. Again. And then I got to work. We streamlined the production process, launched a limited seasonal line. I even hired a photographer to take professional product shots, the twins modeling the spring collection in a sun-drenched meadow. Not long after, Tiffany Monroe from Morning View Live invited me to appear on her national talk show. "Emma Carter," she said, "during the segment you're showing women everywhere that no matter how deep the fall, we can rise. What you've built is more than a business. It's a movement. They played a montage of my journey images, of my tiny apartment turned sewing den video of Lily and Noah laughing in the outfits I made, and finally, me sitting beneath the Little Blessings logo, hands clasped, eyes full of quiet pride. In that moment, I didn't think about James, or Evelyn, or the cold silence they had left behind. I thought about the fire I had walked through, and the fact that I had emerged on the other side not burned, but forged. If this part of the story touched you, please take a moment to leave a comment. Maybe you've started something from nothing too. Or maybe you're still in the fire trying to find your way through. Either way, know this, you're not alone. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Because here, we tell the stories that prove strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up with your hands still shaking and building something anyway. This is Little Blessings. This is Emma Carter, and we're just getting started. It was a quiet Sunday morning when it happened. The air smelled like warm cinnamon and fresh coffee. Lily and Noah were curled on the couch giggling over a picture book. I was folding orders for Little Blessings, my hands moving almost mechanically as my mind wandered. That's when my phone buzzed an alert from a local morning show. I nearly dropped the basket when I saw my own face on the screen. It was an interview I had filmed weeks ago with Tiffany Monroe. I'd nearly forgotten about it in the whirlwind of orders and meetings and motherhood. But now there I was, smiling, calm, collected, sitting under studio lights while Tiffany leaned forward and said, "Your journey, Emma, it's nothing short of incredible." Thing. James Whittaker saw it too. Across the city, in a room filled with polished glass and lifeless luxury, he was staring at the screen like it had slapped him. His once steady hands trembled around a whiskey glass. My voice floated from the speakers, strong, confident, unrecognizable from the woman who once begged him to stay. I used to think I needed someone to save me, I told Tiffany. But then I realized I had everything I needed inside me all along. The camera cut to a photo of me holding Lily and Noah in our little park. We were laughing, whole, unshaken, beautiful in a way that money couldn't fabricate. And James shattered. He hadn't thought about me in months. Not really. He had buried his guilt under boardroom deals and champagne toasts. His mother had called it moving on. But now the image of the woman he left behind thriving without him sliced through that illusion like glass. By the time I opened the door later that afternoon, he was already standing there. His eyes, once clear blue, were dull, rimmed with regret. His clothes were immaculate as always, but something about him had unraveled. "Emma," he whispered. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He cleared his throat like it would clear away the years. "I saw you on TV. I didn't recognize you at first, but then I did. And What are you doing here, James?" I asked. My voice wasn't sharp. It didn't need to be. It was steady, full of everything I had rebuilt in his absence. He blinked, unsure how to respond. I needed to say, "I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to know that I was wrong." I waited. "You were everything, Emma." And I threw it away for fear, for money, for my mother's approval. And now I wake up every day with everything I was supposed to want. And none of it means anything. For a moment, the silence hung between us like a fog. Then I exhaled. "I used to wait for this moment," I said. "I used to dream about you coming back and realizing what you lost. But now that you're here, I realize I don't need it." He flinched just slightly. "I don't need your apology," I continued. "I don't need your guilt. I don't even need your closure. I built a life without you, a life I love, one that you don't get to be part of." James looked down, his voice cracked. "I understand." "I hope you find peace, James. I really do." But mine, I nodded gently. "Mine doesn't include you anymore." And just like that, I closed the door. I didn't look back. I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. Because that day wasn't about bitterness. It was about reclamation. About drawing the line between who I was and who I had become. The Whittaker estate had never felt this cold. The walls, once grand and imposing, now echoed with a silence too thick to ignore. Marble floors that once gleamed like status symbols were dulled by shadows James couldn't shake. The chandeliers sparkled above his head like frozen stars, distant, untouchable, just like everything he once believed he wanted. He stood in the vast foyer, staring out the arched window, hands deep in his pockets, heart a tangled knot of shame, regret, and the bitter taste of his own obedience. Behind him, the unmistakable click of heels echoed down the hallway. "Where have you been?" Evelyn Whitaker's voice was as sharp as ever, cool, composed, clipped with disdain. James turned slowly. His mother stood at the edge of the grand staircase, in a tailored black dress, holding a glass of aged wine like it was her scepter. "I went to see Emma," he said, voice low but firm. Evelyn raised a sculpted brow, and James didn't answer right away. He walked to the bar, poured himself a whiskey, and downed it in one gulp. Then he looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, he didn't see power. He saw calculation, emptiness. The woman who taught him to fear weakness so deeply he mistook love for failure. "She's moved on," he said. Evelyn's lips curled. "Of course she has. Women like her don't last long alone. They find someone new to leech off of." "Stop!" His voice cut like a blade. The silence that followed was electric. "You don't get to talk about her like that anymore." "You never did." Evelyn blinked. The wineglass in her hand tilted slightly. "Excuse me." "You ruined everything." His voice cracked not from weakness, but from years of holding back what should have been screamed long ago. "You saw a woman who loved me, and instead of welcoming her, you tried to erase her because she didn't wear your name like a crown, because she wasn't one of you." Evelyn's expression didn't change, but her knuckles whitened around the glass. "I had a family," James said. "I had love, I had peace, and I gave it all up because of you. Because I let you convince me that I needed power more than I needed them." Evelyn scoffed softly. "Power is protection, James. You wouldn't have survived without it." He laughed bitterly. "I'm not surviving, Mother. I'm rotting in this mansion, in the suit, in this life you built for me. Every single day I wake up in silk sheets and I feel nothing. Not joy, not purpose, just vacancy." She stepped forward. "And what? Now you think you can run back to her? That she'll forgive you? Take you in like a stray dog? She never stopped feedings." "No," he said, shaking his head. "She already told me. I'm not part of her life anymore." Evelyn's lips twitched, half victory, half contempt. "Then what's the point of this performance?" James stepped closer. "The point is, I'm done. Done being your puppet. Done living a life stitched together by fear and polished lies. I'm walking away." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic. You walk out that door, you lose everything. Your inheritance, your shares, your seat on the board." James smiled, a real one, tired but pure. "Mother, I already lost everything that mattered." And with that he turned, walked to the coat rack, slid his jacket on without urgency, as if he'd already left this place in his heart long ago. Evelyn stood frozen, the cold wine trembling in her hand. "You're just going to throw it all away." "No," James said, pausing at the threshold. "I'm finally choosing something worth keeping myself." She didn't follow. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. Because people like Evelyn Whitaker don't apologize. And sons like James. They spend half their lives trying to be worthy of the mother who never truly saw them. But tonight he walked away not just from the estate, but from the illusion that he ever had to earn love. Outside, the wind was sharp, but the stars above were clear. James took a deep breath. The world felt terrifyingly vast and completely unfamiliar. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel trapped. He felt free. The morning sun filtered through gauzy white curtains, casting a golden glow across the hardwood floors of Emma Carter's home. The sound of laughter, pure, high, and unmistakably innocent, bounced off the walls as Lily and Noah chased each other through the living room, their feet thumping softly against the rug. Emma stood at the kitchen island, pouring warm milk into 2 small mugs, the scent of cinnamon and vanilla swirling gently in the air. Her phone buzzed beside her, but she didn't reach for it. Not yet. Not when life was finally this quiet. Not when peace had stopped being something she chased and started being something she lived. Her company, Little Blessings, was flourishing, no longer just a brand, but a community. Her days were full of meaning, not noise, and her heart, once shattered and frayed, now beat with quiet conviction. Later that afternoon, as the twins napped curled together on the couch beneath a blanket she'd sewn herself, Emma took a walk through the park nearby, a paper cup of coffee and handscarf loose around her neck, wind in her hair. She wasn't looking for recognition, but it found her anyway. "Excuse me, are you Emma Carter?" Emma turned, blinking into the soft autumn light. A woman perhaps in her early 30s with kind eyes and a stroller at her side stood smiling nervously. "I just wanted to say thank you," the woman said, "for your story, for your brand, for your honesty. I left my husband last year. It was messy, painful, but hearing what you went through made me feel like I wasn't alone." Emma's throat tightened unexpectedly. "What's your name?" "Rachel," the woman replied. "Rachel Donovan." Emma smiled warm and steady. "You're stronger than you think, Rachel." Rachel nodded. "So are you." They talked for a few minutes, two women with bruised pasts but unbroken spirits. When they parted, Emma stood still under a tree whose leaves were turning gold at the edges. She breathed in deeply, fully, as if her lungs finally remembered how. That night, after brushing Lily's curls and kissing Noah's forehead, Emma sat on the edge of their shared bed, the room bathed in the glow of a nightlight shaped like a moon. Mommy, Lily mumbled sleepily, "Why don't we have a daddy like the other kids at school?" Emma didn't flinch, not anymore. She tucked the blanket closer around them, her voice soft but sure. "Because we have something else, sweetheart. We have a story. And we have each other." Noah stirred, and Lily reached for her hand beneath the blanket. Emma held them both. "I used to think I needed someone else to complete this family," she whispered more to herself than to them. "But I was wrong. We're whole. We always have been." She didn't cry, because for the first time she wasn't mourning anything. She was living, and that was enough. People used to tell me that love was everything. That love could fix the broken, heal the wounded, and rescue the lost. But what they never told me is that sometimes love isn't enough. It wasn't enough when James walked out that morning. It wasn't enough when Evelyn Whitaker whispered poison into his ear. It wasn't enough when I begged the universe for just one reason not to fall apart. But do you know what was me? It was the moment I chose to get up from that floor-eyed, swollen heart in pieces and arms cradling two tiny lives who knew nothing of betrayal, only warmth. That's when the real story began. They say resilience is a quiet thing, that it doesn't roar, it whispers. Mine whispered at 3 a.m. feedings. It whispered through cold rejection emails. It whispered in every stitch I pulled by hand, on a secondhand sewing machine while my babies slept beside me. And eventually that whisper became a voice, a brand, a movement, a life. The truth is, women aren't made to be saved. We are made to rise, on our own terms, in our own time, through heartbreak and humiliation and sleepless nights, not for applause, not for validation, but for peace, for freedom. I don't resent James anymore, because what I gained when he left was far greater than anything he could have given me. I gained clarity, I gained purpose, I gained myself, and that is everything. So to every woman out there who's ever been left behind, made small, told she was too much or never enough, I see you. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are becoming. And one day you'll wake up to sunlight streaming through windows you paid for yourself, sipping coffee from a mug you chose, watching children laugh, because you built a world where they feel safe. And when that day comes, you won't look back with anger. You'll look back with understanding, because you'll know the truth. Change doesn't come when they say sorry. It comes when you say no more. This is my story. And if it echoes something inside, you don't keep it quiet. Leave a comment. Tell me what you've overcome. Tell someone else they're not alone. And if you believe more women need to hear stories like this, subscribe. Because we don't just survive here, we rise. Tioje, my mother-in-law, broke us apart, but fate struck back. When he saw me and our twins on national TV, my mill schemed to tear my family apart until fate exposed her lies on national television. Welcome to the Family Lies, the home of devastating truths haunting betrayals, and the kind of emotional revenge stories that linger long after the video ends. On this channel, we don't just tell stories, we unravel the deep scars left by the people who were supposed to protect us the most. Today's story is a brutal reminder of how love can be weaponized, how loyalty can be shattered, and how strength is often born in silence. When a cold-hearted mother-in-law manipulates her own son into abandoning his wife and newborn twins, all seems lost. But when fate turns the spotlight on the woman he cast aside, the truth explodes in front of millions, and everything changes. At The Family Lies, we bring you raw and deeply human tales of survival. These aren't just stories about revenge. They're about rising from ruins, finding your voice, and reclaiming your power when the world expects you to crumble. If you've ever been hurt by those closest to you, if you've ever had to rebuild your life brick by brick while holding back tears, these stories are for you. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to The Family Lies so you never miss a moment where justice finally breaks through the lies. And remember, every truth deserves to be told. The Family Lies. Revenge stories turn toxic family. True story. Emotional healing and family drama. Story of survival. Mother-in-law drama. Wife abandoned, neighbors, twins, and truth. Thumbnail. My husband walked out on me and our newborn twins because his rich mother demanded it. One day he saw the truth on TV. Got crushed to watch.